Welcome to Voices of Women. I'm your host, Chris Stanis, and also the founder of Women of Wisdom Foundation. We are entering our 30th year. We're so excited to have 30 years of our conference. Started in 1993. It's so hard to think back that far, and how we've made it to 30 years is amazing. It just shows the strength of what Women of Wisdom is for women. And it is March 24th through the 27th this year. It's online, so anybody from anywhere can attend. It's great to meet people, women from other states. And last year, that was just great. You'd be in a breakout room meet women from Florida, from Missouri, from California, from wherever, which was fabulous. There lots of experiential workshops to choose from. And keynote speakers, Rianne Eisler and Cynthia James, and 3 very interesting panels of topics of interest to women. So we've got a lot, over 25 events at one price. And just go to our website, womanofwisdom.org. It's a great price for what you are getting. So check it out, womanofwisdom.org. And today, our workshop presenter that I'm interviewing is Reverend Judith Laxer. She is, she's been around since 1995, I think. So she is an oldie at that. She's one of our elders. Not that she's old, she's just a wise elder.
I'm getting old.
Not as old as me. So our theme this year is celebrating our sacred pearls, nourishing the waters of the feminine. And so Reverend Judith Laxer, she is a modern day mystic who believes that beauty, humor, and the wonders of nature make life worth living. She is the founding priestess of Gaia's Temple and Moonwise Mystery School, which are both online now and accessible from anywhere. She's a keynote speaker, teacher of the magical arts, and author of Along the Wheel of Time, Sacred Stories for Nature Lovers. She dedicates her work to the rise and integration of the feminine in all her magnificence and wisdom in our culture. So welcome, Judith.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks. It's nice to talk with you again.
I know we do this a lot, and it's great.
We do.
So first, let's just share with everybody about your work as a priestess at Gaia's Temple and how it started for you. And you've got many years at that.
Sure. I do go back, but I just want to start by saying that I just want to congratulate you on this 30th anniversary of Women of Wisdom. It's I know that it's not difficult to be, or that it is difficult. It has its challenges anyway, to be in a leadership position for an organization, particularly to steward it over time. It's not easy to kind of hold that vision. And so I just want to congratulate you for doing that. And also just to say that I love the theme this year about the pearls. Because, when you think about 30 years, I just think the committee did a great job in coming up with the theme this year, because we can look at all of our experiences over the years as, pearls that we're putting on a string, and, how precious they are and how beautiful they are. And that, one pearl is beautiful, but a string of pearls is magnificent, and that's what we put together over 30 years. So it's just so lovely. And I have a beautiful pearl necklace that was my grandmother's, and I'm going to wear it all weekend long. So
we're telling everybody to wear their pearls. I know. I have something from I think my mother-in-law, and I have my aunts and my moms, but they're broken. I have to get them fixed.
Oh yeah, you better get on it. It's coming right up.
Yeah, but I know I love the imagery of pearl too, and
it's such a beautiful metaphor.
Yeah. So a lot of people are really relating it to it well. And so let's talk about your workshop, why you chose this topic this year.
Yeah, well, the topic is called the workshop is called Like Persephone in Springtime. And the theme and the topic is about resilience. And, whenever it comes time to submit a workshop to Women of Wisdom each year, I just kind of do my own quiet little meditation and go within and think about what's needed, now, and not just what am I expert in, but what is necessary for where we are in our culture and what's happening in our times. And goodness knows we're facing a lot of challenges. And history is filled with challenges, but I think there's a particular quality to the challenges that we are facing right now. I think they're more dire. Really just making sure the earth remains habitable That wasn't the challenge all that long ago, and now it is. So they're pretty dire. And then because of all that's happening, they're coming one right after another. So, I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir to say, it's climate change, it's been the pandemic, and now it's this war. And, it's just like one thing after another, and it beats you down. And I mean, even if we were only dealing with the pandemic, and even that was an awful lot, even just that one thing
Mhm.
was life changing for all of us. I mean, our world is not the same because of it. So I was just thinking, my heart was getting very heavy and thinking about all that there is that we're grappling with. And, then I remembered how important it is for us to cultivate resilience and how important resilience is because life is going to batter us down. We're going to hit up against these challenges. And it's really important about how we can bounce back. So that kind of got me going in the theme of it. And then, the story of the great grain goddess Demeter and her daughter Persephone is very dear to my heart. I've been telling this story in Gaia's temple for, as long as we've been going, 22 years now. And um, the story kind of lives in my bones, and it's a life cycle story, right? So it's the story of Persephone who goes to the underworld and then she returns again in the spring. That's the real short version of it. But when she returns in the spring, she's bringing wisdom with her. So when she goes to the underworld, it's not an easy time. It's a hard time. She's leaving her mother and the bright sunshine above the surface of the planet. She's going to the land of the dead. She's going to what we might look at as in psychological terms as shadow, and that stuff's not fun. And but it matures her and it wisens her. And so when it's time for her to return, which I'm thinking of as that resilience that we want to cultivate, um, it's good to remember that the hardships forge us, and hopefully they forge wisdom in us, and we bring back that wisdom after we go through the hardships. And we need to be wise, and we need to be wise now. And so, what I'm thinking for this workshop is a couple of different things. One, of course, to explore the theme of resilience, explore how the difficulties in our life bring us wisdom. I mean, just getting older, we experience so much, and that hopefully we glean wisdom from our experiences as we age. But also to look at how resilience doesn't automatically mean bouncing back to exactly where we were before the hardship, because the hardships change us. So we want to bounce back, but to expect that we're going to bounce back to who we were before the hardship, I think is a little bit of folly. So how can we cultivate resilience and stay open to what's now? What's now, what's next?
Yes, what's new? Well, that's true. I mean, they talk about, well, we won't go back. How, after the pandemic, how do we go back to live? We've learned some new ways of living. We've had to challenge ourselves. So these are challenges, and you mentioned in your description about challenges. So why are challenges adventures?
Yes, well, I think all of that has to do with perspective. I think it has everything to do with perspective. And we think of an adventure, adventure means a trip that goes in a direction that we hadn't expected, or a trip or a journey that goes somewhere we've never been before. But, in the cultural lexicon, we think of an adventure as like a fun, like road trip, like something that's really fun. And sometimes an adventure is something that can also be challenging. I don't think that they have to be separate. So our perspective has everything to do with how we hold an experience. So, the pandemic has been an adventure. None of us alive at this time, except for the very, very elderly, had ever been through a global pandemic before. This was brand new material, brand new experience for all of us. And we're all grappling with it, and in many ways still grappling with it. Um, and I think we will continue to grapple with it. Like, I think a lot of the trauma that's happened because of this, a lot of the loss that we've just been doing everything we can to kind of keep on keeping on. I think once we're past the worst of this pandemic and contagion, we're going to have some trauma to heal. So has it been an adventure? Not the way we usually think of it, like, yahoo, let's pack our suitcases and go on a global pandemic. But I think adventures have challenges and they stretch us. And we are forced to learn things and be certain ways and do things that unless we hit the challenge, we don't. We don't stretch beyond that. We like our comfort. We like to get everything the way we want it, and we want it to stay the same.
Yes,
And
yes.
there would be no pearls if it weren't that gritty sand inside the clamshell, right? That's an irritant. It's something that causes it's a causes something to happen. I'm sure the clam is not happy when that sand gets in there. That's why it forms the shell, the pearl, right?
Mhm.
Because it
Right,
doesn't feel that gritty grit against its soft inside. So
right, right. So learning ways to find that resilience and new ways of being, and I think what Woman of Wisdom does is coming together with other women to share the challenges, share the adventures that maybe you haven't wanted to have. We haven't wanted to have. No one called for this pandemic. We here haven't called for this war. But I mean, wars have been happening for, thousands of years, and
ever,
yet it's kind of like, here we are again. But coming together and being able to feel supported and witnessed by all that we're going through, and what generates for me is ideas for people like, oh, I might
yeah,
sit in a workshop, might sit in your workshop and meet someone and they're doing something really interesting that's bringing resilience to them. And I go, oh, wow, I can do that or something like that.
right,
And it just
exactly.
reinforces that in everybody. And
It
so,
does.
yeah.
Yeah. I think so too. And I think also that, because we've been so isolated during this pandemic, I mean, if we're partnered, then we've been sort of isolating with our partners, so we're not completely alone. But I have a lot of single friends or people who have
Mhm.
really been on their own, and computer and Zoom and their iPhones and phone time, and has really been the only connection that they've had for a very long time. So that level of isolation, we're social creatures. We're not meant to be isolated like that. So that added a whole nother layer of psychological hardship. And so you're right, gatherings like Women of Wisdom, or any time that we can get together and talk with our friends and share our experiences so we know we're not alone in this, um, is really important for our mental health and our psychological health and our spiritual health and our physical health. They're all connected.
Yeah, that's true. And get in alignment. Well, and we're starting to get into spring. And so we can look forward to, we can be outside with people. We can take a walk. We
Oh,
can,
yeah.
do things. And although it still feels cold here, but the sun's out, and spring's coming, and then summer's coming, and so things are kind of opening up. But yeah, there's a lot of grief to deal with. There's sort of a collective grief, and some people have a personal grief, have lost people or been sick themselves. And then there's the collective that is hit us all around the world on a conscious level. So it'd be interesting what's going to happen in the next few years of where we'll go with this.
Yeah, there's a lot of healing that needs to happen. And I don't think we're even in our awareness of how much healing there needs to happen. I still think we're going to be surprised at the amount of it, at the gravity of it, of how it's going to show up in places that we didn't even think was wounded. Like, we all know the people that we lost, and we know that sort of thing, but there are other sort of adjunct losses that come along with that. And I think that's just going to play out over the next couple of years. And there's going to be a great need for healing and community to find each other again and reconnect. And I think that's part of resilience also, is to reconnect, you know.
Right. And when you're talking, I'm thinking too of just finding new ways that will be kind of creating new ways of being with ourselves in our homes, with our partners, with our friends, with community. That will be, it'll be different. And
Yeah.
you and I, and I'm sure others, are in that hopeful state of positive changes that will come from it. So what gifts have you gained from these challenges?
Well, the biggest change for me is that, the work that I do, my psychic work, I have clients all over the country. So I was used to doing readings over the phone and stuff. So, switching over to Zoom wasn't that big of a deal. But my mystery school has been live right here in my office where I meet with my students in an ongoing way. And that, like, completely fell off. And what it forced me to do, really forged forward for me, was to wrangle around technology and get my mystery school up online. And I did. And I am very proud of myself. But mostly what I did was make sure I found and hired a millennial to help me because I don't know what I'm doing. And it would have taken me three, four, five times as long to figure out the technology and to drop the anxiety level around anxiety because around technology, because it's just never been something that I've really enjoyed. Like a lot of people really enjoy that, and I have not. Um, I hired somebody to help me, and she was grateful for the work, and I was grateful for the help. And she got the whole, platform set up for me, and slowly was teaching me how to create the classes. And it is still so mutually beneficial. Well, it was beneficial for me. I definitely feel that I'm getting the better end of the stick here because I knew no matter what I did, there was going to be somebody who could either fix it or help me if I got into trouble. And that gave me a little bit more courage to experiment a little bit. But anyway, last year, around this time, around the spring equinox last year, I launched my mystery school online. Um, and it's been wonderful. And kind of like you were saying before with Women of Wisdom, we all want to get together and hold hands in a circle. And online, we're meeting people all over the country, and I'm getting students who are not local, and they're being able to study with me, and I'm being able to teach them. So there's been a great benefit from going online. So that was the biggest shift with regard to my work. Um, and it was a huge shift, huge shift. And the other thing that I did about it that I also think was pretty wise, and I'm proud of myself for this, is that I didn't try to emulate what I do live on an online because I knew I couldn't. And then I would always be feeling like I was failing or it wasn't good enough. And so I just decided if I had to create this whole thing virtually, what would I do? And then it became this whole creative process and actually was fun, to kind of like reinvent my work. Who would have thought I'm going to be 63 next week? Who would have thought that? I was thinking at this point I'd start to be, coasting and slowing down, but it was a whole new thing. So I'm lucky in that I was able to make that transition. I'm very lucky that I was able to make that transition, but I was able to do it. So that I would say is the biggest shift.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have done that too.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, find the people that can help you because I live with a techie, so hasn't been
you
too
are
hard.
lucky that way.
But last year, learning, our conferences on a platform app, Hoover and Zoom, and it was a big learning curve of
Oh yeah.
around that. I know basics of Zoom, but my brain kind of swelled up of
Oh,
putting all the pieces together. So this year we've had I don't have to worry about it because it all worked out fine. It was great. And so in this year we can kind of sit back and relax and know it all comes together. And but I want to go back to your workshop or just
yes.
before we close of just if you have any tips to share or just one tip about how to rise to the surface from the depths of these uncertain and challenging times.
Well, yeah, this is the tip that I would say, which is that in order to rise to the center, I'm sorry, rise to the surface, we have to be able to push off of something. And so that means sometimes we have to really go to the depths. It's like when you jump into that swimming pool, when you get to the bottom, you can push yourself all the way back up to the surface for your next breath. And sometimes we have to go to the depth of the challenge in order to do that. We need support in going to the depth of the challenge. I don't recommend going to the deepest, darkest nights of the soul without support and loved ones and your therapist and your friends and all like that. But I do think that in order to rise to the surface, sometimes we have to get to the bottom of what it is that's dragging us down. And by that, I mean, truly understanding what that challenge is, wrestling with it a little bit. I always come back to that brilliant turn of phrase that Byron Katie taught us, which is that everything happens for us, nothing happens to us. And when we shift our perspective to, okay, this is not fun, but if it's for me, if it's happening for me, then what's the gold I can glean from this so that I come away with some wisdom instead of just come away wounded and debilitated? So
Right.
that's one thing to keep in mind. Like, don't be afraid of the challenge, or be afraid of the challenge, but still show up for the challenge. So often I hear people tell me, they're afraid to tell the truth, to their mother or their husband, or everybody's like afraid. What would happen if we weren't afraid? And we don't have to like punch somebody in the nose with our truth, but we can speak our truth. Or if we really are upset about something, it's okay for us to really know exactly what it is that we are upset about and not try to keep denying it or pushing it away. Not to, make it a meal and keep dwelling on it, but there's a difference between denial and letting fear keep you from your power and saying, what is this monster here? And disarming it so that we can bounce back with the goods, with the pearls.
Yeah, and knowing we can get across to the other side of things, that things always change, and just
Right.
trusting that, especially if you had past experiences, past challenges, and you can look back and go, well, I made it through that. I survived. I got through it, and
Right.
when you're in it, it's rough, but when you get through it, you go, oh, okay, you can breathe. Oh, okay, I did that.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And when you talk about, it's just, you just have to trust that you'll be able to get through it. Me, I'm such a wordy nerd. And so, the root of the word trust is the root of the word truth.
Mm,
We can feel our sense of trust in something when we are being honest, even if it's just with ourselves, honest with what it is that we are challenged, honest with how the challenge is helping us grow, or how the challenge is helping us find, or insisting that we find our inner strength, our power to sometimes just power through, or for us to expand our minds so we have a different understanding. These are like the things that we can bounce off of, you know
mhm.
and that's how we rise to the surface. But it has to be the truth. We can't pretty it up or pretend that it isn't the challenge that it is. And that's how we get to a level of trust. We can trust the truth, which is why, cancel culture and alternative facts are so difficult in our time, because, like, who do you trust? What do you trust? What information
Yeah.
can you trust is really true? You
Yeah.
know?
And that's going within and discerning for yourself.
Yes.
A lot of
Yes.
discerning, and things, knowing what you resonate with, what in your gut, what feels right. And so that's learning how to trust yourself, how you
Yes.
get the information, all that. Well, I want to end with how your workshop fits in with the theme. You use the sacred pearls, nourishing the waters of the feminine.
I think my mind is going in a million different directions, but I think if I had to distill it down, I would say that, I believe, and I still believe, that women in leadership is the antidote to all of the ills and challenges that we are experiencing on this planet. And I'm not a male basher. I don't hate men. It has nothing to do with that. And in fact, it's not even really about gender so much, but the feminine principles of inclusion and nurturance and healing and creativity, but mostly about inclusion, that everyone is included and everyone is taken care of, I think is the way forward for us to heal this world, for us to heal ourselves and our children and the future. And so I think, though, that's the pearl here. If we learn to be resilient, if we learn to rise to the surface like Persephone in springtime, we will be able to bring those qualities forth in our world and that can't happen soon enough.
Well, thank you for bringing your gifts to Women of Wisdom.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be among all these esteemed presenters year after year. Thank you so much.
Yes, and we love having you. And share your website where people can find out more about you.
Yes, yes. You can go to my personal website, which is judithlaxer.com. And there's a link there to my mystery school, too. So if you're interested in learning the mysteries from me, you can find out about all my services on that website. And then if you're interested in my ministry, Gaia's Temple, which is for the divine feminine, that is gaiastemple.org. So those are the ways to find me and my work. Thank you.
Okay, great. And go to Women of Wisdom to find out about all the events going on in Judith's event, and just go to womenofwisdom.org. So thank you so much for being here today, Judith.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. See you there.
Okay.